Hello, summer learners. Welcome to the San Mateo County Library's STEAM Camp. My name is Alice, and I am a librarian for the Portola Valley and the Woodside Libraries, and I'm so happy to be back with you again today to do some more STEAM. Before we get going, I did want to remind you and make sure you know that we are doing curbside pickup now by appointment. So if you want more information on how to do that, you can visit smcl.org/curbside. Let's go ahead and get going because I am just really excited to do some STEAM today. So today I wanted to talk about my favorite part, one of my favorite parts of STEAM, which is the M, which stands for math. But I also thought one of the really neat things about math is that it's used in a lot of the other pieces of STEAM. So today we're going to do something that actually also uses that E part, which is engineering. So we're going to do sort of a mix together of math and engineering with our activity today. And what we're going to do is an activity I got from the Bay Area Discovery Museum. And it looks at shapes and what we can build with different shapes. So before we get going building, I thought maybe it's a good idea to think about some shapes. And I have a few that are some of my favorites, but before I show them to you, I want you to think about what maybe some shapes that you know are, and if you're watching with somebody else, go ahead and turn to them and talk about some shapes that you know and what makes those shapes really special. So one of my favorite shapes is this one. I bet you know what this one's called. Hold it out over here so you can see. This is a rectangle. And how do we know it's a rectangle? Well, let's see. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, but just those 4 sides and 4 corners don't actually make it a rectangle, because the other really special thing about a rectangle is that all of those corners are actually the same size. They are what they call 90 degrees or a right angle. So I think it's a pretty cool shape. Now, I have another shape. Does this one look familiar to you? This one is a square. I heard someone say it. And let's take a look and see how it compares to that rectangle we just looked at. It also has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides and 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. And all of those corners are right angles. So is this a rectangle? Why do you think it might be? Or why do you think it's not? It turns out a square is, in fact, a rectangle, but a square is a really special kind of rectangle because every single one of these sides on the square is the same length. So if you compare it to this one, which is kind of tall, it's all the same all the way around. So that's pretty neat. Now I have another shape that I really like, and actually engineers really like this shape because it's very strong to build with. Does anyone know what this is? I bet you do. It's a triangle. And how do we know that it's a triangle? Well, let's see. It has 1, 2, 3 sides and 1, 2, 3 angles or corners. And this is actually a really special kind of triangle because it has this angle, which, let's go ahead and compare it really quickly to our rectangle. It lines up perfectly with the sides of that rectangle. So this is, in fact, a right angle, or what we call a right triangle. And this is actually even a special kind of right triangle, because sometimes they can be smaller and taller, or skinnier and taller, or shorter and wider. But this one is, it actually has the same length on both of these sides. So it's called an isosceles triangle. Now I have one other triangle I wanted to show you. We know it's a triangle because it has 1, 2, 3 sides and 1, 2, 3 corners. But this triangle is a really special one too. It's in some ways kind of like that square because all 3 of its sides are the same length. And it turns out all 3 of its corners are the same measurement if you measured the angle of them. And this is called an equilateral triangle. And I think it's just really fun to have a shape that no matter how you turn it, it's all the same. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and stick these shapes up on the board back here so we can remember what they were. So we had our triangle, our rectangle. Gosh, my words are all gone. We have our square. We have our isosceles right triangle. And we have our equilateral triangle. All right. So now that we've thought about some shapes, let's do a little bit of building. And to do our building, we're going to need some supplies. So what I have to work with today are, I have some toothpicks, and I have some little balls of Play-Doh that I'm going to use to stick my toothpicks together to make the shapes that I want. If you don't have toothpicks or Play-Doh at home, that's okay. There are some other things you could use. Really anything that's kind of skinny, uncooked spaghetti would work. Or if you have pipe cleaners, something like that. And then if you don't have Play-Doh, anything that you can stick them together with, even tape would be perfectly fine. So I actually have a little platform I built so it's easier for us to do this all together. So I'm going to scoot it in here. And I was looking around my house and thinking, everything around me is made out of shapes. And one of the things I found in my house is this. I bet you all know what this is. It's a die or dice. And what I noticed about it, let's see if you can guess what I noticed about it. I noticed that every side of it is a square. And I thought that's really neat. And it's really easy to count how many sides, or if you have something that is in 3 dimensions like this, that is, it's not drawn on paper, it's got a height and a width and a depth. They're called faces. So it's really easy to tell how many faces this has because they put numbers on them for us. So we know that a normal die that we use in a game goes from 1 all the way up to 6. So I thought, I'm going to try and build this or something that's more or less like this out of my toothpicks and Play-Doh. So I'll put it right here for reference. Now I already did the first step here because I just got too excited about it. I knew that each face of this is a square, so I made 1 square, but I thought I might make a second square that's going to be the top of it next. So it can be a little tricky because this likes to fall apart. I had to do a lot of practicing before I could really do it right, and still sometimes they fall apart, but it's all part of the process. So what I'm doing is I am sticking the toothpicks into some little balls of Play-Doh here. If you have a different, better method, then that is fantastic, and I hope that you share it. All right, and I'm making a square because I know that that square has 4 sides and 4 corners, and it looks like I have it pretty much. So now I have 2 squares, and then I want to figure out how to attach them to each other so that I can make this cube or a shape like this die. And one thing I noticed is that the lines from the bottom on the edges here go straight up and down. So I think the way that I'm going to attach these 2 squares that I made that are my top and bottom face of the cube, I think I'm going to make those toothpicks that stick straight up and down here, just like this. All right, and this next part might be a little tricky because this kind of likes to fall apart. I'm going to do my best, we'll see. I'm going to try and put this square straight on top of my cube. Now, this might be something where if you're watching with somebody, you might want to collaborate, work together to make this easier, because more hands can make it a lot simpler. And ta-da, I built it. Some of my sides are a little wonky. That's okay though. Now, if I was an engineer building something, I'd want to make sure all of my angles were really perfect. But right now I'm just kind of experimenting about what kinds of shapes I can build. So it's okay if they're a little bit different. All right, so if we look around at all the sides of our cube, does it look like it has the same number of sides? It has a top and a bottom and 1 2, 3, 4 faces that are squares. Scoot that over. Cool. All right, so we built a cube, but what other shapes could we build out of toothpicks? I was thinking about the shapes that we made, and I really like that equilateral triangle, that last triangle we look at right over there. So I thought I would make one of those out of toothpicks, and I just used 3 toothpicks and joined them up at the corner. And now I was thinking, so I made a cube that's all squares, so maybe I could make a shape that's all triangles on the faces. So I think that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this toothpick and a toothpick here and stick them together at the top to make a triangle. So now I have 2 triangles that are joined together, which is pretty interesting. But I think I'm going to make another triangle here. Oh, and when I did that, it actually made sort of a little 3-sided pyramid. That's a pretty fun shape, and actually it's a lot sturdier, though it's poking through the Play-Doh, than this one, which keeps wanting to wobble and fall over if I try to do anything with it. So I thought those were pretty fun shapes to build. I was also thinking about maybe there's a way where you could build something that uses squares and triangles. That could be pretty neat to try. So I want to challenge you to keep trying to build some objects with these shapes and see what shapes you can combine. Maybe you could try making something that's all triangles, but a lot bigger than this with more faces on it. Or you can mix together those squares and triangles, or try making shapes with even more sides on them. What about a 5-sided shape? That could be pretty interesting to see how that could fit together. So if you do try that, I hope that you will share it with us. I'm actually going to scoot this out of the picture, because if you do want to share anything you created with us, you can post it to, or ask your parents to post it to social media and use @SMC Libraries or the hashtag SMCLCreates. So I hope you had fun creating some shapes with me today, and I hope that you have already signed up for our Summer Learning Challenge. Though if you haven't, there's still time. So to get more information about it, you can visit summerlearners.org, and you get to do all kinds of really fun activities and read books and get the chance to win a $1,000 college scholarship while you're doing it. And I hope you will join us again tomorrow for more of our STEAM camps. Bye.